Well, good morning, everyone, and it's lovely to have you all join us today. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and I am the chair for PRISM, which has been doing the People's Opioid Summit, and now we are doing it all under PRISM, which is the People's Recovery Initiative for Solutions and More. And we are delighted to be able to do monthly learning circles, which this is, and to have Sam here with us today because this is a really important topic. And I'd like to, I'll put my phone number and so forth in the chat so that if any of you want to get a hold of me for any reason, please feel free. We're always interested in new initiatives and ideas of helping all of us take care of each other. So we're working with some, doing some work within the jail system. We're doing some work, looking to do some work within the school system. We are working on doing an event and a learning experience in Charlotte with the Latinx and Hispanic communities in Spanish. So we're looking to do a lot of different initiatives. However, all of our heads and our ears are better than two and one. So if you have any ideas and you need some help, let me know. And I will be happy to put my information in the chat so you can connect with me anytime that you want. And I connect in all kinds of ways. So email, phone, text, whatever works for you, what works for us as well. So I want to say once again, hello to everyone and thanks Sunrise and Sue and Sam and everybody else that's here from Sunrise for always being available and just a wonderful support and just full of knowledge and information. So we're really happy to have you all here. So with that, does anybody have a question for me? Anybody at all? Please feel free to unmute yourself and let me know if you have any questions. Or just put them in the chat and I will answer them as we go. Also, Sam is going to talk for, probably, 35, 40 minutes, and then she will open it up for questions. So that'll be a perfect opportunity for anything that you have that you want to know about. So with that, let me go ahead and Sam, thank you so much, honey. Take it away.
Okay, cool. So I want to make sure everyone can hear me, and I'm about to share. I have some visual to this presentation, so I'm about to share my screen. So give me a minute. And I will be changing the slide on my own, so there might be times that I forget and I'm like, oh, I gotta change it. So I went over it a couple of times and I think I know what I'm doing, but I will say that I'm a little anxious. This is one of the bigger platforms that I've ever spoke on. I speak often at other events, and really what I've learned is, for some reason, people like to hear what I say. People have told me just because it's transparent, honest, and usually I speak about just my experience on MAT, recovery, and Marilyn had asked me, and I, as an enrolled member, if I would share more about my culture. And I was like, wow, well, that's a big task because Cherokee culture is so rich and there's so much. There we go. I am from the Western area of North Carolina. I grew up in rural counties such as Jackson and Swain County. I'm honored to work for Sunrise Community for Recovery and Wellness as a peer support specialist, and I'll take this time to plug Sunrise. So Sunrise is located in Buncombe County. We're an all peer agency, meaning all the way from our executive director down, we're all in recovery. That doesn't mean we're just in recovery from substance use. We're in recovery from multiple different things. We are really a harm reductionist agency. We meet people where they're at. Literally, it could be on the street. Our program originated in 2016 from a drop-in center, which I now have the honor of being the office manager over that center. And from that center, what we found is there were a lot, or from starting the center, what we found, and we knew that there are a lot of gaps. There are a lot of gaps in the process of trying to get in recovery. And I think Sunrise is a gap filler. I think we take those gaps and do the best we can to try to fill the gaps. So we have many different programs. We're contracted out with the county. We have a respite. And I am going to link our website at the end of my speaking session, so that you guys can, if you have somebody in mind that might want support from Sunrise, or you want to get connected, you can check out our website and I'll give you a program review. So one myth is that I hear a lot when I work at casino. I can't think of the amount of times I can't fingers or hands, that's the same thing, toes or fingers. I can't count the amount of times that people would say that their grandmother is a Cherokee princess. And it kind of is a running joke, but in all seriousness, oftentimes tourists or visitors that visit the reservation will make the statement that their great-grandmother was or is a Cherokee princess. As soon as you hear that princess label, the red warning flag should go up. While there are sometimes true stories of Indigenous ancestry in their family, oftentimes it's more fictional than fact. Family stories of Indigenous ancestry often seem to refer a Cherokee princess. What's interesting about the particular legend is that it seems to gravitate toward the princess being Cherokee rather than Apache, Seminole, Navajo, or Sioux. It's almost as if the phrase Cherokee princess has become cliche. Keep in mind, however, that many stories of Indigenous ancestry could be a myth. However, it involves the Cherokee. However, that many story of Indigenous ancestry could be a myth, whether it involves Cherokee or other tribes. So you'll hear a lot of times, and that's not to devalue that people actually have ancestry, Cherokee ancestry. It's that, all the time, it's a claim that a lot of people make. And if you were ever interested to see if you were Cherokee, we do have an enrollment office in Cherokee, and they can help you through your family tree. So I did want to talk about how that myth kind of began. The saying the Cherokee princess began during the 20th century. It was common for Cherokee men to use an enduring term to refer to their wives that roughly translated to princess. Many people believe this is how princess and Cherokee were joined in the popular Cherokee ancestry myth. The Cherokee princess may have really existed, not as royalty, but as a beloved and cherished wife. Some people also speculate that the myth was born in an attempt to overcome prejudice and racist feelings regarding interracial marriages. For a white male marrying an Indigenous woman, calling her a Cherokee princess may have been in an unfortunate attempt to appease racist family members. Another myth is that we lived in teepees, and the fact is we lived in homes made of mud and wooden limbs. So I put a picture on the screen and a little meme about the Cherokee princess. But if you look to you can see the mud and stick built home. That is more of what we lived in rather than teepees. So another, and the last myth that I wanted to go over is traditional wear. This is another thing that is kind of a running joke, but it really, when I say that, it can be a kind of offensive, and in all seriousness, it happens a lot more than we wish. So I often hear tourists ask where the real Indians are. And I'm like, hello, I'm an actual Indian. I'm real and I'm Indian. I'm assuming they're looking for someone dressed up that stands by the road in a feathered headdress, which is actually not a part of our heritage. Cherokee clothing varied from season to season, mainly consisted of woven cloth or deerskin. The women wore dresses, the men wore pants, and everybody wore shoes. In the winter, they wore a cloak made of woven cloth or fur. Hairstyles differed wildly from clan to clan. Some men wore clean shaven, others wore beards. Some men shaved their heads, and others wore top knots or ponytails. The long haired clan would put their hair up in fancy hairdos and waves and curls, and sometimes articles woven into their hair for spectacular effect. Cherokees were not feather nuts and never wore huge feather headdresses like the woodland or plains people. The only time a Cherokee would wear a feather was in the time of war or during a stickball game. In preparation for the war, the medicine man would prepare the feathers for warriors to wear into battle. This consisted of a single eagle or hawk feather with a small feather dyed blood red tied to the top. The feathers would then be tied into the Cherokee warrior's hair on top of his head, and the dyeing technique was considered sacred and a secret. So I just thought those were some really common myths that I wanted to just get on out of the way. I did put some pictures up of some traditional wear. And yeah, so let's go into the curse of the reservation. And the statistics and numbers that I'm going to be sharing are for when I was in the hustle and bustle of addiction, as well as the time when I started my recovery journey. So you'll see the dates are not actually present, but more when, this opioid crisis was kind of going down and I was in the midst of it, trying to get sober. There probably is updated numbers, and I wouldn't say they're much better, I guess, but I don't have those. And but the numbers that you'll be hearing are jaw dropping, and they really give you a snapshot of what I and others like me were battling during that time. The Koala Boundary was one of the 10 locations across the country identified in 2018 as high intensity drug trafficking area. In 1 month, the federal authorities arrested 76 people and seized opioids valued at more than $1 million. The number of patients diagnosed with a drug-related struggle at Cherokee Indian Hospital increased 300% between 2012 and 2018. In 2018, more than 4,500 patients received a substance use diagnosis. So things were kind of really, hitting home. There wasn't even enough services. We didn't have, we didn't even have what we have now, which is the treatment center. It was being put in the works, and our tribe was trying to send our people like me out to other facilities that were going to just use and abuse us and use, for money or whatever. And it was just a very trying time trying to get sober or become substance free. Tribal leaders say that they become aware of the opioid issue about a decade ago when members started dying from prescription drug overdoses. As a tighter, and I remember when I was young, when my first friend overdosed, it was from getting our per capita money, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But he had got it and overdosed, and he was very young, and that became a trend when we get our, So I was 18 years old, graduated high school, had no budgeting skills, and I got $62,000, and I was in addiction. I can just honestly say I have nothing out of that money. And luckily I have a second shot and been able to save money, and money really isn't everything, but it would have been a great start to start a new life. But I was in the middle of addiction, so I spent it all on that. And so that has happened a lot. Unfortunately, they have changed where you get the money in sums, so they break it down so you're not getting so much. Again, at 18, even if I would have had budgeting skills, it still was just a scarce time. And it really became a perfect storm for addiction, because as tighter industries controls were put in place, you remember when prescriptions were harder to get, it really turned into heroin and fentanyl, which is where we're at now. And many of our members become addicted by legal prescription because our elders get pain pills because they're elders and are young, and would steal them and take them or take advantage of them. And so you got you got money and prescription pills, and it's a deadly effect. And so, and also we're such a tight-knit community. So when these deaths do happen, it really impacts everybody. And at this point, I have become numb to the overdoses of people and friends I've lost. Native American, young women and men. And it is, I don't know how to process it. We've lost, and this is, I know, more of a it's more worldwide, but I'm just speaking on reservation. I mean, we've lost a whole generation, and class member, a whole class. Like, just think of a whole class that graduated; they're gone, and it's heartbreaking. My cousins, my friends. It's still unreal sometimes. I'm like, let me call my cousin, and I'm like, oh, well, he's not here. He passed. It really sucks. And so, well, like I said, the tribe noticed a spike in overdoses in the months when per capita payments were dispersed. And so what per capita is adult members of the tribe can receive between 4,000, 7,000 each December and June. Is a share of revenues generated by the casino. And like I spoke before, if you're not an adult, it goes into a minors trust fund. And then you get it when you graduate or turn a certain age. Yeah, so the per capita can be, again, a gift and a curse. Had I not been in addiction, it would have been a gift. But because I was, it was definitely a curse. And it can be hard to imagine that a place so rich in history has become saturated with drugs. And I'm going to switch gears here a little bit and start talking about my experience, my story, and my addiction. And so I was an active opioid user for 10 plus years, and I started using substances intravenously several times a day for 5 to 6 years before I became substance free. I did, I mean, literally all the things you can think of to get my drug of choice. All of the things. I really had no self-worth. And my use led to incarceration, many incarcerations, loss of relationships, involuntary commitments, multiple felony charges, couch surfing on some of the most terrible places you could think of, very violent relationships. Domestic violence is another thing that I witnessed as a kid. It was normal to me. So when men didn't hit me or didn't want to fight, I thought it was not normal. I'm like, what, you don't want to beat me up? Like, so I went through a lot of domestic violence relationships, and by the end, like I said, I lost myself and my worth. Some of the mortifying experiences, I had an addiction where being used for a person's sexual pleasure, rather than just allowing me to be in a space, in a house, or getting a ride, it was always I owed them something. And they never could just help me out, even it came down to a cigarette. And I succumbed to that because that's all I knew to do. So I do like to bring up whether it's sex trafficking or it's definitely sexual abuse, because I didn't want it, but that is way more common than we talk about. And especially on the reservation, we have the casino, and it happens often. You got money and drugs, again, a disaster. And so that was a big part of my life, was getting with men for drugs, to be honest. When I would get arrested, officers would treat me and talk to me like I was trash. I have been thrown on the ground, like I was a dude, like just shoved to the ground, face in the ground. I've been taken out of a car, out of a vehicle by my feet, drug. I've been handcuffed so tightly that I've had cuts on my wrist, begging, undo these, untighten them. No. I've been left in a cell with no clothes, no hygiene. I stunk like poop. I'm being honest. The dope was coming out of my pores. No clothes, no hygiene, because they wanted me to, tell on somebody. And I was just a person struggling with addiction. I needed help. At the time, they also had skin lice, and from staying in those horrible, nasty places. And there was no medical care in the jail. They just let me suffer. I was being made fun of. I can vividly remember. I remember exactly who it was and what they said. That I stunk. That they wished the shower would help me get rid of the itchy and the smell. And I didn't know. It was humiliating. I didn't know what to do. I was just a person trying to make it survive. There were no recovery programs or recovery material inside the jail. I was begging for help, even if I still wanted to use, I knew I wanted help. And instead of offering any kind of support or help, the officers would always say, like, I'll see you next time, or, just never instilling hope, always, insinuating that there was no hope that I would get well and that I would be back. And with that type of attitude, and I would come back over and over and over. So my mom was my peer support. I say that, I know mom can't really be peer, but she was the person who supported me and did the things that we do now for others. She would bring me that material, and eventually I did start my journey seeking recovery. During that time, during my last jail stay, I'd been running the roads from probation. I was over in Haywood County, just living that life I'm talking about with these men. And I found out I was pregnant in jail, and I had become pregnant with my much older, just to give you an idea. I mean, when I say much, I do think he's in his late 50s at this point, 60s. And this is just giving you a real point of view. Like, that was my life. He sold me drugs and I got pregnant. I didn't think I'd get pregnant. I'd been doing that all the time. And so he's now serving 20 years for distribution of meth. At the time, I was in the lowest point of my addiction. My grandmother, who is a God-fearing woman, prayed that God would give me a reason to stop living that lifestyle. And I truly believe that my son was the answer to my grandma's prayers, because in turn, he is the reason that I am, where I'm at today with a lot of hard work. But when I look into his eyes, I just can't go back. I just can't. So for years, I tried all the ways to become substance free. I went to multiple detoxes all over in Western North Carolina, multiple inpatient programs, outpatient programs, long-term programs, like 2-year programs, work programs, residential faith-based programs, NAAA. I tried it all over and over and over and over. I have kind of a joke that I could write a book on all my experiences and how each place is ran, because I went through them all. I learned many tools to those programs, but every time I went back to use. So I'd be sober for a while. I'd be doing great, working. I had a peer support job one time, and I went back to use. And I'm thinking something is really wrong with me. Like I wasn't worthy of having a better life. I prayed that I would die from using, to be free from that lifestyle. I didn't know another way out. Or, of course, I wanted God to just send me this magical older man who was going to feed me with drugs for the rest of my life. Like, how disgusting. And thank God saw a different plan for me, because that didn't happen. And so on my last attempt to live substance free, I went to the same inpatient facility that I had went to several times, but this time was different because I was at my wit's end. I had tried every dang thing. I was meeting with my treatment team, and we're going over all the same things. Do you want to go to long term, or you going to do a year, or do you want to go to our outpatient program, or do you want to go to 90 and 90 meetings? And I'm like, shit, none of that has worked. And someone on the team was like, well, let's, have you ever thought about trying, MAT, Suboxone? And I'm like, no, I haven't, because it was so stigmatized, and that I didn't want people, I didn't want to be judged. I wanted to be in recovery, and I didn't want people to think like, oh, she's using a crutch, or she's high, or whatever. But I went for it. I'm like, there's got to be something. And in the day, I always kind of wanted to be on MAT. I don't know. I didn't think I'd be successful at it. And so I was released from that inpatient for the last time 5 years ago. I went to the MAC clinic the next day to start my MAC journey. I will say that just starting the journey and getting on the medication was that was just the beginning. It was helpful and amazing, but there was a lot of hard work to do because it did not solve my problems. I still had cravings. I still have cravings. I'll have cravings if it's nice outside. I had to talk myself down all the time from going and calling old people to get my drug of choice. Like I just do. I don't know how long that'll last. It's got better where I'm like, I don't even consider it, but I'm not perfect. I've had extreme anxiety. I went through a divorce. You know, there's been that lack of interest in recovery communities, just not feeling like I fit in. And even though I went through all the, through all that, I always reached out. I pushed through it. I reached out to my supportive family. I became honest with myself and others. Hey, I'm on Suboxone and, and I'm struggling. Like I'm on it, but I still need help. I don't, my brain is messed up. And when I was honest, I would get the help that I needed. I have made mistakes in recovery. I am not perfect. But when I get knocked down, I get back up. And then, 5 years later, I own a home. I have a healthy relationship with my family, with my coworkers, with the community. And of course, at the forefront of it all, I keep my faith. I am a faithful person. Tools I've used to take care of my recovery are Mara. Like I said, I support NA. I actually love it. It's done great things for my friends. It didn't work for me, but that means nothing. I gave up on meetings. Like I don't understand it. I just don't. And then Mara came, Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous, and it is a, it's very non-judgmental. It's really, you just come to the meeting to live a safe lifestyle. You don't have to be on medication, or you can, and it doesn't really matter. Just be there. And people, and I got supported. So I found hope in meetings again. I've been focusing on my overall wellness. I just went through a dental situation where I chose to invest in my mouth rather than, clothes, shoes, and other things, because I can do that now. And like, my goodness, before, if I would have had the money to invest in my mouth, it wouldn't have went in my mouth. So like I sit here today with, I didn't have front teeth. I was able to buy myself permanent freaking front teeth. And, dental health is not talked about enough in recovery. It really isn't. In addiction and young people, everybody, dental health is a thing. And, I feel like there should be a support program for just dental, like how to get the process started to get the help you need. Another thing I do is I take my meds correctly. I don't shoot them. I don't snort them. I don't sell them. I take them correctly, the way the doctor tells me. I take 24 milligrams of Suboxone. I'm on the highest dose. I've been on the highest dose. I have a high tolerance, and I take half in the morning, quarter at lunch, quarter at dinner, and quarter at night. That's the way I do it, and it works. I've been going to CrossFit. Holy crap. I never thought I would get my, fitness in check, and that has helped. I set boundaries with people. I tell people no. Men, I set boundaries with men. I lost a whole relationship over standing up for my recovery and other things. But ultimately, he loved me, but he wanted me off the medication, and I just couldn't do it. And great person, but again, I had to set boundaries for my recovery. And then, I show up for work, and at the end of the day, I love myself. And I just want to, no one's journey is the same. I chose and created my own pathway. So no one gave me a book on how to, here's the pathway you got to go on. I took little pieces and I put it all together, and it worked for me. I have no shame, again, that I wasn't able to succeed in other programs. And so, now I've been doing the work and been giving back. I do want to share on one program that I'm very passionate about and proud that I was a part of. It's a program contracted with Sunrise, who I work for, and Buncombe County Sheriff's Office. This program is staffed with peer supports like me, who's been in jail, been through that trauma, on the inside, helping the people, our participants who come in, identify as opioid user, or anyone who wants help, and we're able to meet them inside the jail where they're vulnerable, and sometimes at that time is a good time that they start having change talk, and we're able to get in there. and not only provide them support, but provide them with resources. That's one thing that was, still is in rural areas, it's hard to find things like halfway housing, money for food, clothing, hygiene. I had none of that. I'd get all these places and go to what I used to know because I would get those things there. We get them over that hump. And not only that, but we provide them medication, MAT medication. Like, holy crap, that's just a game changer in my book. It would have changed my life and so many others, and I'm grateful where I'm at now. But I do kind of reminisce on, oh my God, if I was offered MAT inside the jail back in Swain County, Jackson County, where would I be now? Would I what would I have not missed out on, rather? But no need for reminiscing. We're able to offer MAT if they're already on medication. We're able to continue it so they can stabilize and kind of get back on track. And then also we provide it to them at release. So right when they get out, they get a 5-day prescription that gets them to their provider. So instead of going back to their drug of choice or their dope dealer or overdosing, they're on medication. And it lessens the cravings, and it's really just a miracle program to me in my eyes. And of course, I think that every jail, this program is innovative, and but it's still very stigmatized. How I wish we could get this on the reservation, and I have actively talked to people. It's just so freaking stigmatized. Like, you're giving people, drugs. And I'm not saying someone specifically has said that, but the overall thought is, oh my God, giving medication inside the jail, you can divert it and all this. But I was with the program when it started, and those things may or may not happen, but there are ways to prevent those things and still help people. So I've personally seen that success it just outweighs every, for me, it is a need, not a want. And here's some more pictures of Sunrise, our little group here. I can't say enough about them. Right here is actually me with the Buncombe County Sheriff. We went and thanked our EMS and EMS fire department with cookies. And the sheriff, luckily is a support in this MAT program and peer support and what we're doing. And oh my God, and I actually took a Snapchat with him, but I wasn't going to share that, just because he really believed in my story and what I was doing, and he was willing to talk to me. So there's that. I want to share, and we're getting close to the end. I just about my MAT journey. I want to share that what I learned about the brain. Oh my gosh! So you remember when I said that I was a messed up person because I couldn't return to use? Well, that's not true after all. What I learned about the brain is that opioid addiction, of course, is a scientific proven brain disease. And when I did that first opioid years ago, I think I was 18-ish, maybe 17-ish. I can't really remember. People ask all the time, when did you start and why? And it's so hard to remember the specifics. But when I did that first opioid with my family, let me tell you, my brother, that receptor loved what I fed it. And you can see an image here of a receptor. And that caused withdrawal. AKA withdrawals. It wanted more. It wanted to be fed more. And that's what I did. I fed it more forever and ever. Oh, and then when I started MAT, the medication binds to those receptors, and it tells my brain I'm okay, that I feel normal. I'm not high. I feel completely normal. Now without it, I feel shitty, I'll be honest. But on it, I'm functional. It's a functional medication. It's not a crutch. It literally it works with the brain in this brilliant way. And like I said, it makes me okay. And do I plan to come off? I do not have a plan to come off. I may be on MAT for the rest of my life, and I'm okay with that. MAT does not. So my biggest points in all this is MAT does not have to be the last option like it was for me. It can be the first option. We can start offering it, like I said, right there in the jail when people are coming off of their drugs, their substances. If you're working with them as a peer and they're like, well, I'm on heroin or fentanyl, instead of offering them to go do a long-term treatment, maybe have you tried the clinic? And if that don't work, then of course you try other things. But let's not wait till the very end when they've lost everything and more. It just kind of goes back to my story. And I really encourage you all that if Matt is someone's preferred treatment, be that person that supports them and helps them get to their individual pathway. Give them the contact number, take them to the clinic if you're able to. But yeah, so that is all I have. I have the sources that I took some of the pictures off of, some of the facts that I shared. I have Sunrise website, and I have my email and phone number. And yeah, that's what I have. Yay, thank you.